Hi, Satyam here, and this is the third video in our TypeScript series. So in this video, we are going to see what are strings, numbers and Boolean, and after that, we are going to understand the difference between string, number and Boolean and their counterparts with capitalization, string, number and Boolean. So let's get started. Now every language in existence actually provides you a set of built-in data types. Now these data types can vary from language to language. Some languages have less data types, some languages have more data types. Okay, basically just segregation happens. So what is a data type? Okay, now data type is just the type of the data that you are dealing with or working with in your program. So for example, suppose that you are creating a calculator, then most likely you are going to deal with sentences, you are going to deal with numbers, okay, in that calculator. So why would you need to deal with numbers? To make the calculations. And why would you need to deal with the sentences or words from English? To actually create the UI, right? Because you are not going to write numbers on the UI, you are going to write plus, minus, add, these kind of string characters on the UI. And that's what data type is. Okay, it's just type of the data. And in TypeScript we do have a few primitive data types. Now in this video we are going to see the strings, the numbers and the Boolean data type. Okay, now let's just get started on our computer screen. So from the previous sections you can see we have a TypeScript YouTube folder. Now I'm just gonna create a new folder inside of it, and I'll just call it let's just say primitive types. Primitive types simply means basic types or the most common types or the most basic level types. Okay, that's all it is. Because you can create your own types also in the TypeScript. Okay, and we are going to see how that happens afterwards after a few videos, I guess. But for now, let us see what are primitive types. Okay, so I have the folder. I'm just gonna start my Visual Studio Code real quick. This is the code from our previous video. I'm just gonna open a new window, close this one, and I'll just drag and drop some things. So I'll just drag and drop this folder here. Now our folder is open inside of Visual Studio. I'll trust the authors, and now we can actually start creating our files. Now if you don't know how to install TypeScript, I have already created a video. Okay, that is the previous video. So now let us actually start by creating a TypeScript file. I'm gonna call it index.ts. Okay, and let us start by understanding what is a literal. Okay, literal, or I should just write the spelling here. I'll make it a little bigger. Okay, so literal, what is a literal, right? This is a literal. Literal simply means constant, something that does not change itself. Okay, so for example the spelling of hello is constant. Okay, the spelling does not change at all. Okay, suppose that you want to write 86 number. Okay, 86 is constant. Okay, this is how it is always written. It never changes. You cannot write 86 by writing 9 and 9. This is 99. This is not 86, right? So literals are just constant values, and these constant values are exactly what we store in the variables. Okay, so suppose that I create a variable called let's just say my number. Okay, my number is equals to let's just say 86. Okay, right? So what I'm doing here is that I'm creating a variable and then I'm storing a constant value. Remember that yes, you can actually assign a new value to the number. Okay, my number is equals to 99. Yes, that is okay, but understand that here the variable, okay, that is not constant, but this value, this 86 is always gonna be 86. It will never change into 99, right? Yes, you can replace the 86 with 99 in the variable, but you can't really say that okay, this is the 86 can be something else. 86 is just constant. It's just a value. It's a constant value, and that is a literal. Okay, that is basically what literal means. Now we store literals or constant values in our variables, and I'm gonna start by let's just say start with number itself. Okay, the number primitive type. Now since I'm storing a number in my variable, I will need to write, or I will need to actually tell the TypeScript compiler that okay, look, this thing, okay, this variable will always store this type of data. Okay, a number type of data, which means I cannot go ahead and say that okay, my number is equals to some other string now. Okay, now it is actually giving me an error. Okay, and if we see the error is that type string is not assignable to type number, which means that this type string cannot be assigned to a variable of type number. Okay, and this is type safety of TypeScript. Now this is a primitive data type. There is nothing to talk too much about it. Okay, one more thing is that if I remove this thing, okay, and I try to look at my code again, and I still get the error. Okay, why? So if we see the error, and the error is basically the same. So basically what happens is that TypeScript, when you are writing TypeScript, it actually infers, or it actually figures out what kind of data you are storing in the variable. Okay, and then it just sets that data type for the rest of your program, which means if I'm storing here 86, okay, if in the starting phase I'm storing 86, then for the rest of the program this variable will always store a number itself. Okay, because we are storing 86, which is a number in the starting, and it basically automatically figures out what the data type of that variable should be. Okay, that is one thing you can keep in mind. So you will not actually have to write every time that okay, my number colon number is equals to 86. You can just write my number is equals to 86, and then TypeScript will figure out that whether on the rest of your code is correct or not. Okay, now something similar happens with the other two data types also. So if I just remove it and let us create a new variable, message is equals to hello. Okay, it's a string now, it's a sequence of character, or it's a sentence basically, you can say. So what is the data type of this message variable? The data type of this message variable is string, right? So we can write it like this also. It is perfectly valid. And if we try to change it to something else, like just say 88, it rightfully gives us an error, because we can of course remove this thing from here, and the TypeScript will automatically detect what kind of variable, what kind of data type is actually stored in this variable. Okay, and similar goes for a Boolean also. So let's just say my bool is equals to true. Okay, and yeah, similar thing goes for my Boolean. Okay, so basically this is the Boolean data type. Okay, it is automatically figuring out, the TypeScript is figuring out that this is a Boolean data type. I can write it like this also to make it completely obvious for other programmers. Okay, so this is primitive data type. Basically there is nothing much to talk about the primitive data types, but I just wanted you to know that okay, this is how these things are. Okay, now you know how you are going to use the number and strings. Okay, you are going to use numbers for calculations, you are going to use the strings to display things or to do other things. Okay, but how do you use these Boolean, right? How are you going to use the Boolean data type? Because a Boolean data type can only contain two values. It can contain true or it can contain false. There are no other values. Okay, one of the two values only. So understand that Boolean is like a switch, or it is like a path. Okay, so suppose that you are creating an application or a website in Next.js, or like just a React. Okay, so what you can do is you can create a variable called is loading. Okay, so suppose that your application, okay, actually wants to get some data from the server. Now your application, the front end of your application or website will send the request, or the fetch request or Axios request API calls to the server, okay, to get some data. And these calls, or this process actually takes some time. Okay, during which the user will not be able to do anything in the website most likely, and you may not actually want him to do anything anyways, right? So what you can do is, when you are sending the request to the server to get the data, you can actually create a variable called is loading. Okay, and then set its value to true, that okay, now we are loading. And you can, let's just say here, okay, I am creating is loading a variable. Okay, and in the React you can use state. Okay, so once the value of this thing changes to true, okay, you can actually show something. Okay, you can show spinner. Okay, you can show loading screen. Okay, you can show anything. Okay, and once you get the response from the server, you can actually run a particular function once you get the response from the server. So once you get the response from the server, you can actually set the value of this is loading back to false, and then it will take away the loading screen, okay, or the spinner. And this is how these things are actually used. This is how Boolean is used. It is like a switch, okay, that you use from time to time to display different things based on the situations. So now that we have talked about these primitive types, Now it is time to understand the difference between these. Okay, so we have string, we have boolean, and we have number. Okay, these are primitive data types, but we also have these things: string, okay, boolean, and number, okay, with capitalization. Okay, here the n is small, here the n is large, sorry, big, capital. Okay, capital, not big. The similar is for other data types also. Now understand, most of the time you will not actually be using these data types. Okay, the string, boolean, and number with the capitalization, you will not be using these. You will simply be using these data types. Okay, and because you don't really need to use these, but I'm just gonna tell you the difference between the two. Okay, so basically these upper ones, okay, the smaller ones, these are basic data types. Okay, these are literal values. Okay, they are just values that you store in the memory. So suppose that I create a variable like let message is equals to hello. Okay, and the data type is simple string. So what is happening is that this hello, this data, okay, is going to directly get stored in the memory. Okay, somewhere in the memory of your RAM or somewhere. Okay, so that's what it does. And similar thing happens for number and for boolean also. These data, okay, these constant values directly get stored in the memory or RAM. Okay, but when you are using the capitalized string, what it does is it creates an object. Okay, so what happens is that we can create a new variable called message object. Okay, object is equals to new string, and here we can pass hello. Okay, now these two are different. Okay, this is simple data being stored in the memory. Okay, that directly the data is directly being stored in the memory. And here what you are doing is you are first of all creating a object, an object, okay, a wrapper object, and then in that object you have the hello data, and then this object is actually stored somewhere in the memory. Okay, with hello data inside of the object. Now the thing is that when you are storing this value, this constant value in the memory, there are no other things getting stored in with this value, right? But when you are storing this data, oh sorry, this object in the memory, an object can contain functions. Okay, the functions that you can use on the data. So for example, I can say message object dot to uppercase, right? So what this function will do is it will actually take the hello string from the object. Okay, and then it will convert that hello string into complete uppercase or capital letters, and then it will return it to you. So the output will be something like hello with complete capital letters. Okay, this is what you will get. So this function actually exists or is available in this class. Okay, remember that this is a primitive data type. A small string is a primitive data type. The capital string is actually an object. Okay, it is basically a class that creates, that you can just use to create an object. Okay, now I know that we have not covered classes and objects, but for those who have any understanding of class and object, you can understand it just very easily. Okay, it is simply a class. We are going to see what classes and objects are in much later in the series, but right now we need to use those words to explain this thing. Okay, you can come here again and get a refresher. So the capital string is basically a class. Okay, it's a class with data and methods, okay, or the functions. So this to uppercase is actually present in string. It is not present here in this. Now it is making sense why we are using this capital string. Okay, or what is the use of this capital string? To get access to these kind of function. Okay, we have many functions, to be honest, not just this message object dot, and then we have so many functions in this that we can use with this string. Okay, with this hello string, and these functions are very important. You do not get these functions here in this. Okay, because this is just getting stored, this literal or this constant value is simply getting stored in the memory. It is not an object here right now, but here you are actually creating an object of the string class, and that object contains the hello string, and there are methods that you can use to manipulate or control how this hello string will be. But there is one more thing. Okay, if you actually do this, okay, if I just use this one, the message, and then I try to get some function. Then you can see that we have the exact same list here also for the functions for this small string, okay. And I just said that you don't actually get these functions with this, okay, right? But you are actually able to see these functions here. So how does that work? Why is it happening, right? And this is a very clever thing by JavaScript, okay. Remember that this string is actually from JavaScript engine, okay. This is not something that TypeScript defines. It is not from TypeScript, it is from JavaScript engines, okay. So you will always get this thing in the JavaScript engines. Anyways, that is extra topic, but the question is, how are we able to get these functions with our normal string also, right? So the thing is that JavaScript is a very clever thing, okay. And TypeScript is nothing more than extension of JavaScript. So when you are doing this kind of stuff, that when you are just creating a small string, okay, and you are trying to get functions from it, what is happening is that JavaScript is taking this data from the memory. It is creating a new object of a string. This is capital string type, okay, and with this exact data, and then it is actually calling these functions on that newly created object, okay. These functions will be actually used on that newly created object, and the error is for argument, it's not remember, like, let me just use some other function also, because I don't know what this argument takes. So to uppercase, yeah, so you can actually use it here, okay. So what it does is, it takes that new object, it actually applies the function, okay, to that object. It calculates the result of the function, it takes the result of the function, and then stores it back into whatever variable you are trying to store it in, okay. So let var variable is equals to this. So what it will do is it will actually create a new string object like this, okay, with the data here, and then it will call this function to uppercase on that newly created object. It will take the result, okay, of that object and of that function, and then it will actually store that result into this variable. And after that, the newly created object will be thrown away or destroyed automatically by the JavaScript, okay. So all this happens behind the hood, and that is why you are able to see that, okay, message dot to uppercase actually works. This is the reason why it works, okay, because the JavaScript is actually handling a lot of things in the backend, and that is why a lot of people actually get confused that, okay, I can use the same function with the message and message object both, right, with the small string and the capitalized string both. Then why do I actually need this one, right? And now you know that this is the reason why you need it, okay. At the end of the day, JavaScript is just creating a new object with this data, applying the functions, and then giving you result back, okay. That is why you need this string. So as you can guess, that you will never actually need to use these things directly, because the JavaScript will handle it most of the time for you. So there are very rare cases, very rare cases, that I cannot even imagine, where you will actually use this thing directly, this capitalized string directly, okay. But this is how it works, this is how it really works. And the same thing goes for capitalized numbers, okay, and capitalized boolean. The same thing goes for them, the same thing, okay. And they have just extra function that we can use, and we can do more things with the data that is stored in those objects. And now I believe you have a better understanding of why we have a small string and why we have a capital string in TypeScript and JavaScript. Now in the next section, we are going to talk about what are arrays in TypeScript, and that is very important and interesting topic. So now we will meet in the next section. Till then, bye.